In this tutorial, we will learn how to create an eerie, beautiful animation using After Effects. This trick is from Johan on Instagram, and in my opinion, it is worth the attention of every new and upcoming motion designer. Let's go! First, let's create a new comp with 1080, 1920 resolution. Next, we'll create a circle shape layer and make sure it is centered in our comp. Then, we will go to its position and separate the dimension to have full control over the movement of the circle. To do this, we will alt-click the stopwatch and write a simple expression in the X position. Wiggle, open the parentheses, and 1,300, close it. And in the Y position, wiggle to 400. Now let's break up this and call it O1 circle. We can move this composition from left to right using the position and scale properties from 0 to 100, and make sure to ease your keyframes by pressing F9 or right-clicking keyframe assistant and making sure it's easy ease. To create the desired effect, we will duplicate the composition as many times as you need and offset them by moving them around 20 frames, 10 frames, 5 frames each time. So make sure you automate this step by using the free script PG Shift layers. Next, we'll create a new adjustment layer and place it on top. We'll use this layer to blur all the circles at once by using the fast box blur effect and increasing the blur radius value to 40 or something like this. Let's select everything and pre-comp this composition, calling it 02 displacement plus blur. We will hide the 02 displacement plus blur composition and create a square shape layer in the bottom half of the composition. We will then add a displacement map effect to this shape layer and change the displacement map layer to our 02 displacement plus blur that we hit. If nothing appears to be happening, it is because the max horizontal and vertical displacement values are too low for what we need. We need to increase the value of the vertical displacement to 500 or something like this to make sure the sphere animation comp displaces the square shape layer. At this point, you may want to go back to the previous comp and try to play a little bit with the timing to get something not very generic, but something organic by just, playing with the offset of the layers and their position. To slant or distort this animation, we will add an adjustment layer on top and apply the CC slant effect to it. With the CC slant effect, we will change the slant value to 90. The height value to something around 113 and move the floor a bit to achieve the desired slant effect. It's worth mentioning that depending on your composition size and shape, you might need to change these values to fit what you want. You can always fix this later. To color this animation, we will use the 4-color gradient effect and change the colors to our desired value. We will then animate the color points to create a nice movement within the animation. So we're just going to go a little bit back on the composition previously and do a little bit of change in how the layers are layered, because the slant and the displacement doesn't really look too good yet, so I just want to have something that I can look at. Let's pre-comp everything and call it 03 slant comp. In this comp, we will draw a simple mask on the parts we are interested in from the previous comp and move the comp a little bit to the left to fix that little start thingy. Now, let's pre-comp this and call it 04 slant masked. We will duplicate the 04 slant masked comp and hide the top one. We will select the bottom comp and add a CC radial fast blur effect. changing the amount value to 90 and moving the center position to the left side and slightly upwards, just until you can get this kind of huge, long blur that looks like a mountain. We can make this layer sharp by using the levels effect, changing the channel to alpha, and dragging the handle from right to left until we are happy with the shape of the mountain. Additionally, we can use the free deep glow effect to improve the colors by using these values, but it's not really necessary. Just make sure you check the unmold text. Let's go back to the top comp and make it brighter and different from the bottom comp's color. To do this, we will reuse the 4-color gradient effect with brighter colors and different positioning, just to make sure that the back mountain is darker than the ones that are facing the camera. We can use the curve effect to make the colors even brighter in case you would just want to cheat. Let's pre-comp everything and call it 05 3D effect. This is our final comp, so it is wise to now rename it CC Final, with CC standing for color correction. We will mask the 05 3D effect composition and use the feather option to make it look smoother on the masked edges. Just, try to hide whatever doesn't look good and scale it down a bit just so that you can get it to cover the composition. We will then duplicate it and rename one copy left mountain and the other right mountain, positioning them, one on the left and one on the right. Next, we will create a background. This background will dictate the overall color scheme, so take your time with it. To create the background, we will create a new solid and call it BG background. Then apply the 4-color gradient effect. Then we will change the colors to whatever we want to go with. To animate these points, we can alt-click the stopwatches and write the expression wiggle 1/300. This will just make the move as the time goes. To make the mountain colors fit better, we will use a simple trick. We will go to the left mountain comp and use the tritone effect, changing the mid-tone to a desired color. We will then copy and paste this effect to the right mountain comp. It's time to create the river edge stroke. We will duplicate the mountain comp, rotate it to the left side, and delete all the effects. To make this layer look like a stroke, we will use the find edges effect, and then we will invert it. To remove the dark part, we will use the linear color key effect and select black with the pick icon. To improve the visibility, we will change the blending mode to screen. If we want to take control of the color of the stroke, we can use the fill effect, we can use the ramp effect, but here we're going to use the fill effect and change the color there. To make the stroke look angelic, we will use a glow effect, just as the free Deep Glow plugin that we just used earlier, and setting the exposure to 2 or to whatever that will make this stroke, pump up. Let's duplicate the layer and flip it to the right. For the core flare of this tutorial, we will use Video Copilot's Optical Flare plugin. We will create a new solid and call it OP for optical flares. Then select the effect and go to the options. We will delete everything and only keep the glow and streak options. Then of course close the window. Back in the optical flares effect, we will change the color to fit our animation and the scale to 10. And you might need to change the scale and brightness just to fit your comp. To make the flare flickers and not stay still, we will change the speed in the flicker option from 0 to 19 and the amount to something around 58. To blur the flare, we will use the Gaussian blur effect and set the blurriness to 5. Next, we will create the river. To do this, we will duplicate both the stroke river layers, change their blending mode to normal, and delete the linear color key effect. We will then play with the mask until we are happy with the result. The river side looks a little bit weird, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go and parent the layers, rename them, of course, and parent them to the right one, to which mountain they belong, and then we will scale them a little bit up just so that we can get a greater size than them being small. So I think this looks perfect. Now, pre-comp these two layers and call it water river. And to make this river interesting, we're going to use three effects. One, let's add a light sweep that starts from the top and goes all the way down. To do that, we will use CC light sweep effect. Change the center to somewhere you can see it, somewhere here, and let's change some things. We're changing the width to 63, the intensity 25, edge intensity 50, edge thickness 4, looks good, and the color, the color can be something yellowish, something like this. Done. Now, let's animate it using the center from top to bottom. So let's create a keyframe on top, move it a bit in the timeline, and put another keyframe here. We're going to move just a little bit to make it pose a bit, and copy paste the same keyframe here. Now, to have this happen all the time, we're gonna alt click the stopwatch to enter a simple expression that will help us loop this animation. So loop out, there we go. We will use the free plugin Quick Chromatic Aberration and change the scale to 98, and you can see what it does here. We will fix the edge using the tritone effect and enter specific colors. Alright, time to fix a little bit these mountain colors because they don't look too good to me, because we're going to be doing some color correction later, but they don't look too good to me, so let's just fix them a little bit like this. Awesome! Time for the sky clouds passing by. Let's create a new solid and call it sky. Let's create the clouds. We will use a very strong effect called fractal noise. Let's change its look to something like bubbly by changing fractal type to dynamic. The contrast and brightness needs to be adjusted to get the right amount of clouds, so change the value to 158 and -63 respectively. The clouds are a little too small, so we'll go under transform, then change the scale to something pretty big, like 302 maybe, yeah. Perfect. Let's now animate the offset turbulence to get the effect of them moving. So you can just move them from the bottom and put a keyframe, then go all the way top and put another keyframe, and play as much as you want just to get the right speed that you feel like you want to do, like some anime opening. All good. Now, let's fix the cloud perspective by using the effect corner pin. Make sure the bottom pins are aligned in the center with the flare. The top pins will have to extend outside the view a bit just to get this really beautiful perspective distortion. The clouds now have this black color which we need to get rid of before we continue. So let's use linear color key effect and remove the black spots. Same as the flare, let's blur the clouds a bit with the fastbox blur. I find the radius value of 20 or something slightly bigger to be pretty cool. We're nearly done. Let's blend these clouds with everything else using blending mode screen and make these cloud fit the color scheme by using tint effect and changing the black and white tints to these colors. Since we have a river and a sky, it would make sense to make these clouds reflect on top of the river, isn't it? But first we need to fix a little bit this river. So I'm just gonna go add a shape layer with the same color. So I'm just gonna pick the color, and I'm just gonna go to effect and choose a blur so that this can just blend in the top and it's not too sharp. Perfect. Now to create it, it's pretty easy, so we'll just duplicate it, rotate the river. Now let's mask the area outside the river by using a technique called alpha matte. To do that, we will need to duplicate this water river comp and put it on top of the sky reflection layer. Then choose alpha matte and voila! Feel free to play with the tint color or blur if you want. Let's finish everything up by adding some magic. Create an adjustment layer on top of everything and name it CC for color correction. First effect, we will be using a posterize time. If you're like me, you created a 25 FPS composition, or the animation is just too fast, you can use this effect to make it better and make it more stylized. In my case, I've tried some numbers and 12 looks pretty okay. Time for some color tuning, and for that I will use the curve effect and just adjust the RGB value like you can see here. But please, by all means, go ahead and do whatever thing feel okay to you. Now, to make things a little bit better, I think the mountain colors need to be adjusted. So I'm just gonna go change some colors here and there. And of course, to make things more exciting, I'm just gonna add a sharpen effect with a value of 46, as you can see here. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. If you did, make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the like button to show your support. If you're interested in getting the project file and learning how to create additional elements from this tutorial, just like you can see here in the final result, be sure to check out my Patreon page. And as well, there are other really important tutorials on my channel, so don't shy away. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.